Hi, hello friends, my name is Kat. Welcome to the channel and today's video. So we do all kinds of book, beauty, and lifestyle content over here. So today's video, we are getting into my 25 books to read in 2025. So originally I wasn't going to do this. I don't know, I wasn't feeling very inspired by books I wanted to read. I couldn't really think of anything off the top of my head. And then I kind of remembered that I love making lists. I love kind of setting these bookish goals for myself. And you know what? I got really excited thinking of some of the books that I could want to read. And I decided to focus this list entirely on backlist, fantasy, and sci-fi books that I really wanted to get to. That I've wanted to get to for a crazy long time now and have never made any effort to do so. So you know what? Why not? Let's actually make some time to prioritize some books that are staples in the genre, some things that authors maybe I've wanted to try out before, and just some books that maybe have intimidated me a little bit in the past. So welcome to today's video, and let's just dive into these. So the fair amount of these books, I don't know the premise off the top of my head, so I'll be just kind of reading out what I can from it. I'm not going to get into a crazy amount of detail about any of them either, just because I don't necessarily know right now. Some of these books, I have an idea of what it's about, but I don't necessarily know a huge amount of the details. And also, this might be a slight problem because I don't know if any of the videos will be up right now, but I am doing a year-long project to try and read as many series that I have ongoing as possible, because I have a terrible habit of starting books or starting series and then never finishing them. So I'm trying to rectify this year and finish off pretty much every series that I currently have on the go. And I think quite a few of these books are the beginning of series, so that might be an issue, but we'll see. Maybe this will just make it more fun for me for the year. So the first book, I want to read Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. This is book 1 of Malazan, which always has scared me. I will be very honest. I am incredibly intimidated by it. It is a huge fantasy epic that is apparently very complex and a little dry to get into. And apparently, I think from what I've heard, is that every book kind of follows a different cast of characters potentially, but it's about a huge empire and a crazy amount of people within it. So I've always been scared of this one, but I do desperately want to get to it. Next, Empire Silence by Christopher Ruccio. Again, another huge sci-fi epic that is very hyped lately, but also kind of being lauded for being a little drier and a little complex at times. And this one is basically the story of I believe a nobleman who has led to the downfall of a bunch of planets. And I'm very excited about that. Apparently this series, some people's all-time favorites, some people are a little iffy about it, but that kind of gets me excited because I tend to, when there's something that has that big a divide, I tend to get very excited about it and love to see where I might fall on it. The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams. Know very little about this one aside from the fact that I think it's a medieval fantasy, and apparently it is the book that inspired Game of Thrones. Because especially if you see, I've seen some fan art and artwork of this Dragonbone Chair itself, and 100% reminds me of the Iron Throne. It gives off that vibe so much. And I don't read a lot of medieval fantasy. That is something that always intimidates me, and is just one of those genres that I tend to stay a little bit away from. So I'm very excited to actually get into it. Magician's Apprentice by Raymond Feist. I know a few people in my real life who say that Raymond Feist is one of their all-time favorite authors, and this is where they recommend I start with. Apparently, so he has several series, all of them are interconnected, I believe, and is a huge expansive sci-fi fantasy world. I think it's technically fantasy, but it takes place on different planets and involves traveling between them. Very confused by a lot of the things that people told me about this one. It is something that, yeah, a lot of what is said has not made a lot of sense in my head, but I'm still very excited. I'm very curious to see where it goes, and definitely ridiculously excited to finally be getting into this one. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers is about I think a group of space adventurers and a crew on a ship who are traveling across the world, or across the universe, I guess. I've read several books by Becky Chambers and have loved all of them, so I don't really know why I haven't gotten to her most similar series, and I do own a few of them, so it's one that I really want to get to. So many people talk about how fantastic this book is, so I need to get into it. I really need to, and every single thing I've heard about it makes it sound like something that I would absolutely love. The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. So in this one, we're following a con artist who comes into this city with one goal: to trick her way into a noble house, securing her fortune and her sister's future. I think this is in an Italian-inspired world too. Sounds cool. Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. I do believe that this is technically classified as sci-fi, but I I will say I've been terrified to read this one. It seems so incredibly complex because I know it takes place across thousands of years and we're following, I believe, like reincarnations of people. Yeah, so it says the narrative boomerangs back through centuries in space by returning by the same route in reverse to its starting point. So it's about a bunch of characters, how their fates intertwine and how their souls drift across time like clouds across the sky. I'm definitely intimidated by this one. Obviously very, very curious about it. I've heard so many people say that this book is insane, like in a very good way. And I've never read anything by David Mitchell either. Malice by John Gwynne. I've read one other book by him, which was The Shadow of the Gods. I think that's the first book, which I didn't enjoy, unfortunately. That one really was not for me. I think it just, I don't necessarily love like Viking inspired fantasy, but I really, really would like to give him another shot. And this is another one of his fantasy series that is so highly recommended. So many people love, very, very popular. And a lot of people say it's like one of their all-time favorite fantasy series. So of course I want to give it a try. I want to see if this one potentially could work. I don't know. Is this the one? There's one that I think takes place in the same world as The Shadow of the Gods from the little bit that I know about his books. I do believe there's some that take place in the same worlds. So if so, that makes me a little bit nervous, but I don't know. I'm not seeing anything at the moment. So if you know, let me know down below. But yeah, I'm excited to try another thing by him. If this one if this one doesn't work, I might just say that like he doesn't work for me and kind of, you know, not give any of his other books a try. But we'll see how this goes. The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. You know, I am severely lacking dragon books in my life. Why not? Like, we can absolutely say that I need more dragon books. This one has a crazy good recommendations too. Or I've had a crazy amount of good recommendations from this one, and a lot of people say that the magic system is incredible. So in this one, there's people who are fighting an unwinnable fight for almost 200 years. Their society has been built around war and only war. The lucky ones are born gifted. Everyone in 2,000 women has the power to call down dragons. 1 in every 100 man is able to magically transform into a bigger, stronger, faster killing machine. Really excited. I've wanted to read this one for so long and just like never make time for it. This is another one that I just like, I really want to force myself to read it. Red Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson, I think is her name. This is about settlers who settle on, a group of scientists and settlers who are on Mars to colonize it, and I think do scientific experiments as well. And I believe that we're just following a potential, like some issues between the people, something like that. Not really sure. Yeah, so I guess it's just about the colonization of Mars. It's an epic scientific saga chronicling the next step in evolution, creating a world in its entirety. Shows a future with both glory and tarnish that awes with complexity and inspires with vision. Sounds good. Hyperion, another like classic sci-fi epic that I cannot wait to get to. A lot of like this one I've been a little scared to get to, but honestly because of like the same reason I was a little scared to get to Dune. Just a lot of the reviews say that it's complex and a little boring, a little dry. Dune is fantastic for me, so like I really need to not let myself get scared when I hear things like that. So this one, on the world called Hyperion, beyond the law of the hegemony of man, there awaits a creature called the Shrike. There are those who worship it, there are those who fear it, and there are those who have vowed to destroy it. In the Valley of the Time of the Tombs, where huge brooding structures move backwards through time, the Shrike waits for them all. On the eve of Armageddon, with the entire galaxy at war, 7 pilgrims set forth on a final voyage to Hyperion, seeking the answers to the unsolved riddles of their lives. Each carries a desperate hope and a terrible secret, and one may hold the fate of humanity in his hands. I'll be honest, I've never read, I own this book, I've never read that description of it, and that makes me so ridiculously excited. So I can't wait to get to that. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I think this one is 2 rival magicians set in a more Victorian England type of setting, I think. And that's kind of been the main reason I haven't picked it up to date, is that historical fiction, historical fantasy tends to not be my all-time favorite thing. But again, this one is very popular, and it's from Susanna Clarke, who did write Piranesi, which is one of my all-time favorite books. So I need to give this a chance because I feel like there's a good chance that this could really work for me. Once There Were Heroes by Philip C. Quintrell. So this is book 1 in the Time of Dragons series. So again, I'm very much hoping that there are dragons. So once there are heroes, those whose deeds earn them the heart of a dragon. Okay, and then all these heroes became dragon riders. Okay, so there's all these dragon riders, they were heroes, they fought for their world, but now there are no more heroes. They're in a war against these other people, and it sounds like it has wiped them all out, and now there's only soldiers. So I think, are we in like a darkened time within this world, and maybe there's dragons to be coming back? Okay, could be interesting. Paradise 1 by David Wellington. We have two, a special agent and a doctor. They wake up from a cryogenic sleep, dragged, freezing and dripping out of their like sleep pods with the ship alarms blaring in the background. They know something's very wrong. Warned by the captain that they're under attack, they have no choice but to investigate. Doesn't take long to learn that they've been met by another vessel, a vessel from Paradise 1, Earth's first deep space colony and their final destination. Worse still, the vessel is empty, and it carries with it the message that all communication from the 150,000 souls inhabiting the Paradise 1 has been completely seized. Ooh, this sounds really exciting. It sounds very much like a sci-fi horror, which I love. Something that not many I've found have worked for me, so I'm always ridiculously excited to find one that potentially could. The Shadow of the Wind. This is Barcelona in 1945. A city slowly heals from its war wounds, and Daniel, an antiquarian book dealer's son who mourns the loss of his mother, finds solace in a mysterious book entitled The Shadow of the Wind. But when he sets out to find the author's other works, he makes a shocking discovery. Someone has been systematically destroying every copy of every book this author has ever written. In fact, Daniel may have seen the last of his books in existence. Soon Daniel's seemingly innocent quest opens the door into one of Barcelona's darkest secrets, an epic story of murder, madness, and doom. Cannot wait for this one. So many people I have heard talk about it. Like every single person I've heard talk about this one loves it, says that it is beautiful and like a masterpiece. So yeah, of course I want to get into it. City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. One book I've read from him has really worked, and that was The Tainted Cup. And then Foundry Side, I gave 2 stars. So this will kind of be, I guess, the tiebreaker to see if his work actually is like really works for me. So we're following a city. It once wielded the power of the gods to conquer the world until its divine protectors were killed. Now its history has been censored and erased, its citizens subjugated, but the surreal landscape of the city itself, forever altered by the thousands of miracles its guardians once worked upon it, stands as a haunting reminder of its former supremacy. Then we're following a young woman who is a junior diplomat sent by the oppressors of the city. Unofficially, she is one of the country's most accomplished spies, dispatched along with her terrifying secretary to solve a murder. Okay, so one thing that really worked for me in The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett is that it was very much a murder mystery, and if he's doing it again in this one, that could be great. Goddess of the River. This is a reimagining of the story of Ganga, goddess of the river, and her doomed mortal son. The writer who did this, Vaishnavi Patel, she wrote Kaikeyi, which I read a few years ago, really enjoyed it at the time. It was another reimagining of an Indian like mythological story, and makes me really excited to get to this one and see like if that same magic shines through in here. Oath of Fealty by Elizabeth Moon. So it's a fantasy series. Ooh, I'm seeing this, I might need to change this one because it seems like this is a series within, like it's a second trilogy within a fantasy world. I don't know if it's necessarily just the same world or a different, like if it's following different people or what, but that makes me, I'm gonna have to look into this one a little bit more. I might need to change it out on my official list, but yeah, it's like the second series on a fantasy world, so I might change it to the first one. So yeah, this one, consider it a maybe, I guess. The Goblin Empire by Catherine Addison. Another one I hear fantastic things about. So the youngest half-goblin son of the Empire has lived his entire life in exile, distant from the imperial court and the deadly intrigue. When his father and 3 half-brothers in line throne are killed in an accident, he has no choice but to take his place as the only surviving rightful heir. This has an amazing political system in it, and that's like the main draw of this book, I guess, is that the politics are so fantastic. The City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I believe this is a fantasy series, and I absolutely love all of the sci-fi books I've read from him. I do believe I've read several of his fantasy stuff as well. Just overall, I've really enjoyed pretty much everything I've read from him, so I'm excited to try another one. And so this one, it is fantasy. It's a darkly inventive portrait of a city under occupation and on the verge of revolution. Okay, that's cool. That'll be very cool. Engines of Empire by Richard Ford. This epic fantasy tells the tale of clashing guilds, magic-fueled machines, intrigue, and revolution in the one family that stands between an empire's salvation or destruction. The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. I've realized recently that I really like nautical fantasy, which I entirely blame on the Mad Ship trilogy by Robin Hobb. So this is 100% the main reason I put this in. So we are following 2 nations at war, a prize beyond compare. For generations, the 100 Isles have built their ships from the bones of ancient dragons dragons to fight an endless war. The dragons disappeared, but the battle for supremacy persisted. Now the first dragon in centuries has been spotted in far-off waters, and both sides see a chance to shift the balance of power in their favor, but because whoever catches it will win not only glory, but the war. Babylonia by Constanza Pisati. So she wrote a book, Clytemnestra, last year that I deeply enjoyed. It's a really, really interesting Greek mythology retelling, and I really, really liked the way that she wrote. So this is about a Mesopotamian myth. We're following the queen Semiramis. She was an ambitious warrior, a commander whose reputation reaches the majestic proportions of Alexander the Great. Sounds good. Like, just knowing that I really enjoyed her writing in the first one makes me very excited to try this as well. Novola by Paolo Bacigalupi, and this one is a sweeping literary fantasy about the young scion of a ruling class family who faces rebellion as he ascends to power. Never read anything by him, but I have heard good things I have heard good things also, which makes me fairly excited. And the last one that we have to talk about, it's just a more like sci-fi romance that came out last year that I'm really excited to get to, and I decided to just throw it on here as something a little easier and a little more fun. And this is The Last Hour Between Worlds. So this is an adventure fantasy packed with rival guilds, reality bending magic, and sapphic pining. Oh, so maybe it's fantasy, not sci-fi. I guess it's sci-fi fantasy, but it's one that I really, really enjoy the premise. One that just I think sounds very fun. So I just wanted to add something a little easier, a little more chill on this list as well. So there we have it. That is my list of 25 books I want to read in 2025. Really excited to get to all these. I do think this list will be a bit challenging because these are fairly bigger sci-fi and fantasy books, which, you know, can always take a bit of time and can take a bit out of you, but I'm really, really excited to get to all of them. So thanks for watching today's video. If you haven't already, would love if you would subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in a video soon. Bye.